And we have to make...
Alright, good afternoon, close to evening Earth. This is Adam Sturch broadcasting from the Mushroom Mansion, Taos, New Mexico, working on oil painting Awe. Alright, picking up from where we left off last time with some clouds. I'm going to continue the eyebrow line with a rose, or an orange, right here. I think another one I have right about here. And then a bright yellow up here. And then I have a rose red. Maybe this was my intention for the rose red and this was the orange. Okay, so anyway, I've got an orange, a rose red, and a light yellow mixed up, and a few more clouds to do, and then we'll see how much time is left and move on from there.
I mean, you know, our cities are like swords. Our contribution to the ecosystem of the planet is plutonium, pesticides, fluorocarbons, so forth and so on. An apologist for the human race would say, but we had so many strikes against it. The law of gravity, the cost of materials, the resistance of water, air, and so forth and so on. Well, fine, then we're going to get rid of all that. We're going to enter into the imagination where, you know, the tensile strength of a structure is whatever you say it is. This is where language comes in. I think language is the sort of the CAD/CAM, the computer-assisted drawing software for creating the reality of the imagination. You know, I think it's overwhelming, our situation, the potential, and the depth of the strikes against us. I mean, it's really, what's going on this planet is absolutely unique so far as we know. It's never happened before on this planet. Intelligence emerging out of biological organization and actually having a shot at what? Who knows? I mean, being itself is some kind of opportunity. The reasonable expectation is that nothing exists. Well, why should anything exist? I mean, it seems to me the most conservative universe would be a dimensionless plenum, a homogeneous, pointless, dimensionless. That makes sense. Why, then, is there instead, you know, multiplicity upon multiplicity? I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, stuff like that. How in the world do you get from utter emptiness to that kind of thing? The richness, the creative force behind it all is awesome. And I'm not religious in any ordinary sense. And in fact, I'm violently anti-religious in most senses, and I certainly would lead the charge against priestcraft in any form. But the picture of the universe as a machine subject to a few laws discovered by a bunch of guys in powdered wigs, that's ridiculous. I mean, you've got to be kidding. Science doesn't deal, as it's always a pains to point out, with what's called subjective experience. Well, that's really too bad, because that's all any of us ever had, is subjective experience. You know, so we have, in the interests of, I don't know what exactly, a curious drive, an obsession of the Greeks, really, an obsession with the physical world that we have not been able to disentangle ourselves. It's so that, you know, we can measure the temperature of distant stars, but we don't know what we think about the woman we're living with. Stuff like that. Just such a completely overgrown and overdeveloped dichotomous situation that it makes no sense. So, in terms of any kind of conclusion or something like that, it's that there is an experience. It's harmless, meaning it can't kill you. That's the guarantee there. There is this experience. It is in our cultural heritage. It synergizes the most profound and private dimensions of our being. It allows us to recast ourselves in new forms quickly. And if we don't turn back toward this style of relating to ourselves, to each other, and to the world, but persist instead in the addiction to syntactical abstraction, then I think we'll just run it off the egg. And it will be a tragedy, because it is a horse race. Don't let anybody kid you. It's not that the good guys are miles and miles behind, and so you just might as well tear your ticket up and throw it in the air and go home. No, it's an absolute horse race. Neck and neck, photo finish, race between education and disaster. I mean, we're going to either burst out into a millennium of freedom and caring and decency, or we're going to toxify the whole thing and just turn it into an ash heap. And the responsibility falls largely on us. And we don't know. I mean, the momentum, the lethal momentum of these institutions is terrifying. Our position is like that of people who are attempting to turn a battleship 180 degrees, and we're doing it with an oar. You know? I mean, the momentum of it is incredible. But it is not a closed system. And I say this as a reasonable person. I mean, I want to keep stressing that I won't sit at the same table with the channelers and the people who have good news about Atlantis and all of this stuff. I mean, if this is your private thing, it's okay, but the rules of evidence preclude it being taken seriously until we get your act more together. But in the psychedelic experience, there is confounding paranormal material. It's the only place I've ever found it. I scoured India. These guys, as far as I can tell, it's a skin game. But outlandish things are going on inside the psychedelic experience. It seems to imply the thing we had hardly dared hope, which is that the world is whatever you say it is if you know how to say it right. And then the whole task becomes, how do we take control of this language that allows us to say it right? We, I think I speak for most people here, serve the idea that matter is ultimately at the command of mind, but we need to move that forward as a demonstrable principle, because without that, the fear of most people is that we're imprisoned by physics in a sinking submarine. And yet when you go into these psychedelic spaces, what you discover is that all bets are off. That we can't even tell how weird it is. I mean, it may be possible to walk to Arcturus if you have the right set of coordinates. And the whole concern is to get the word out, to spread this meme, to empower people, to confirm the existence of these realities for themselves, and to begin to form a kind of community consensus about it. You know, it's only, I guess in 1992, we will celebrate the 500th anniversary of the discovery of the New World. 500 years ago, people discovered the other half of this planet. And we're living there now. This is the New World. 500 years ago, this didn't exist. What existed was a vast cataract patrolled by sea monsters, and the oceans of the world poured off this cataract into the infinite abyss, and that was the edge of the world. We, the psychedelic people, are like these early explorers coming back and saying, you know, I sailed west for 16 days and I didn't go mad. Instead, this is what happened. And I bring news of this, this, and this. And what we're accumulating are like the diaries of explorers. But there's a world there. It's a mental world, yes. But we are mental creatures. Take note of that. If we could go there, we would go there. And the things we don't know that we can't go there. we have never taken the imagination seriously. We have never taken the self-management of culture seriously. We've always sort of thought things should just go along like a random walk. But now, because of the immense technical power that's come into our hands, the design process of the whole planet is now on our desk. And we're being asked to essentially step into stewardship of the entire planetary environment. We have to have then a vision. We have to have a dream, not a vision or a dream, the vision, the dream. And it can't come from the personality of individual human beings. It has to come out of the bones of the planet. Yeah. And this is, I think, what the psychedelic experience is broadcasting. It's broadcasting the hologrammatic, fractal, altogether, all at once image of totality that our religions have sensed and called God, that the shaman have learned to use as a vast kind of computer for extracting information, for generating healing energy. But it is that there is some kind of controlling, minded, integrated thing behind nature. And we're not going to understand that this weekend, next week, or ever. This is not a relationship of solving a problem. It's a relationship of being an initiate of a mystery, and then living your life, in the light of that.
All right, that didn't take terribly long, and those clouds help solidify the arch of the eyebrow and at once start dissolving it more into the rest of the scene of clouds sort of emerging from her body. What I think I'm going to do now, there's still 15 minutes left in this memory segment, is mix up a little bit of white glaze and a little bit of lemon yellow glaze and redo the glow on the figures, the foreground figures. And if there's any time, I might put in the dragon, or at least lay in the primer for the shape. So here we go.
Concern for humanity. I mean, we are the lame little brother because we seem to be cut off from all the rest of this. Well, that's kind of a Blakean take on it.
The shamanistic cultures themselves having the notion of a fall, and that and this may just be the people that we happen to interview in our era where we're actually studying it, but that the old days of shamanism were the good days, and what we have now is deleted. And is that just a matter of cultural contact with other cultures, and that the original shamanistic cultures were isolated, or is indeed there a different quality to the time of this 20,000 years ago that led to a general fall amongst
Protestants? It's a very complicated question. The answer gets pretty technical, or talking about it gets pretty technical. The thing that's so interesting about psilocybin and DMT is that they're so closely related to ordinary brain chemistry. The brain chemistry of all higher animals runs largely on serotonin. Serotonin is 5-hydroxytryptamine.
Do a yellow mix
DMT is NN-dimethyltryptamine.
for the final movie. There we go.
Psilocybin is 4-phosphorylloxy NN-dimethyltryptamine, but the phosphorylloxy group goes off as it crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it's 4-hydroxy NN-dimethyltryptamine. So it's very interesting.
Just a little liquid and some bright lemon yellow.
These powerful, naturally occurring hallucinogens are in many cases only one molecule away from endogenous neurotransmitters. So in answer to your question, it's possible to suggest that we're as close as one mutation away from significant shifts in the chemical mix of the human brain. And for instance, in the pineal gland, there's an enzyme called adenosine which is chemically 6-methoxy-tetrahydroharmalan. It's very closely related to the harmine alkaloids in ayahuasca. Well, the persistent myth about ayahuasca is that it creates states of group-mindedness and telepathy. The original alkaloid was actually named telepathine until it was discovered that it was structurally similar to harmine, which had been previously described by Hochstein and Paradis. So, in other words, what's going on here is the possibility that language, telepathy, and all of these mental abilities that are unique among human beings have to do with a very, very small number of mutations in the brain-amine production pathways. One of the things that I want to talk about here is the possibility of new forms of communication, and that the psychedelics can stimulate new forms of communication among human beings, even in the way that they created language in the first place. In other words, I see language as a Model A version of something which could be made a lot more efficient and better and effective. You had something, or did you? Go ahead.
When humankind changes direction and goes towards the opposite space, and that projection, what do you think that we will do with science and all of the stuff that we created that is destroying us?
Well, science, there are different ways to practice science. The Greek style was, science was a spiritual undertaking. The purpose was to know. The idea being that somehow there was something good about knowing. I mean, I had a philosophy professor who said, first of all, I'll teach you how to recognize the truth. Secondly, I'll try to teach you what's so great about it. And this is that kind of a situation. Science, philosophers of science are perfectly aware of the limitations of science. It's the thousands and thousands of workbench scientists who think of themselves as servants of a world religion who create the problem. We need to know how matter works, and we need to know the things which science tells us, but it has no basis for extrapolating into human values. And the culprit there is the concept of social science. This is an obscene idea, and we should disabuse ourselves of it immediately. Social science, psychology, intellectual history, even linguistics, I would say, and philology, and all of this stuff. These people should find honest work. And they're not scientists, and they're mucking up. I mean, it was a grand dream of science that it would extend its methods into social phenomena, having had such great success in the 19th century with Darwin and Wallace in biology. They thought, well, then Herbert Spencer and all these people, why not just extend it into society? But the problem is there are emergent properties in society that exceed the descriptive engines of science. There are emergent properties in biology. I mean, biology may also have to be left out of science. I mean, biology is classificatory, and it works very well there. But in terms of mechanism and understanding, it's pretty murky. The DNA was decoded in 1950. The molecular geneticists promised a golden age shortly to follow, and it's 40 years later, and they still don't understand gene expression or what all this stuff is in the DNA. It's been very disappointing considering what was promised. I think science is an art. Everything is an art, because we have no sure knowledge of anything. I mean, maybe mathematics is not an art, because there, you work from artificially constructed premises. I'm very keen on science. I just don't like its philosophical pontifications. As a method, it's been very effective, but it's bred great pride in it, and it's thought that it could turn itself to domains where it was completely inappropriate.
Just, I have more questions, but I want to try to limit things to the rapid. Maybe if she wanted to. And I haven't tried mushrooms yet, like some way to get around that. But a lot of the things that you've been explaining and describing, to me, have become a reality over the last year. Just the usage of hashish, just ingestion of it, on a very, I have to say, a very, probably limited, because I'm comparing my experience to the psilocybin descriptions that you give, and they sound, tremendous. I think the question I'm looking for is, before you, I guess, got involved with psilocybin and DMT, things like that, were you predisposed to saving the planet and being a humanistic type of person? And did the DMT and psilocybin did it take you to a more profound awareness of, what you as a human wanted to do?
Well, I've thought about all of this, because it's weird to have the life I have. It's so strange. I mean, until I went into therapy, I thought I had the most ordinary family in the world. And then once you're in therapy, you discover, no, it's the most insane scene you've ever heard of. And you just didn't notice. But I've always been interested in nature, and I've always been interested in beauty. And I think it was the pursuit of beauty that served me best, because when I was a kid, first I started out collecting rocks, and then I collected butterflies, and then in my emergent phallic phase I was an amateur rocketeer, and the major thrill there was setting off these explosive fuels and watching the possibility of shrapnel and all this stuff. And then as I got into rockets, I got into science fiction. And science fiction I really consider a proto-psychedelic.
Alright, so that's a good
drug,
round of detailing, starting to
science
crisp up the
fiction
tree a
does
little
is
bit. That needs a
permission
lot
to
more work,
imagine.
so do the clouds and
Says,
everything
"Try it
else.
this way,
But
this way,
someone
this
is
way."
moving
And
along.
then you get
I think that's it for the moment.
that
So thanks for
anything
watching. This
is
is Adam Sturch
possible.
broadcasting
That's
from
what
Mushroom
science
Mansion, Taos,
fiction
New
teaches
Mexico,
you.
working on oil painting
And
awe.
then,
Have a good night, Earth.